Hello, this is Chandra Crawford. I am doing my second presentation for my CI 407 class, and my emphasis that I plan on getting by the end of this spring will be in math and science. Alright, this is my Exploring AMLE assignment, and the reference resource page, or the assignment that I choose, the article I found exploring the AMLE website, was Using Writing to Improve Math Learning. And that's actually my site down there at the bottom for if you need to find it. And I chose a couple pictures here. When I think of writing in math, the only thing I can ever come up with is like doing a math journal, so which is what that little picture represents. I could never come up with another idea or like how useful it would actually be, but I just thought a math journal was the only thing that I could come up with personally on how I would actually include writing. The other little picture is just a way that literacy can connect to it with the writing. It's a little story called Circumference and the Dragon of Pi. It's just one of many, many math books that are actually written for kids to help them understand math in a different, fun way, thrown a different perspective. I thought that maybe the only other thing I could think of possibly would be have your kids try to write their own little math story to go along with things. That's another way that I could think of writing, but that was my understanding before I actually delved into this article. Alright, so why I chose this article is because I actually have I'm trying to get a math emphasis, and writing in the math is something that was a very bizarre idea to me because it's not nothing I've ever done. And as I have learned in my education up to this point is that one of the main changes in the curriculum across all fields, with whether it's Common Core, the NGSS, anything, it's all about including literacy and incorporating it into your lessons. Well, I just thought doing this little research on this article would be a great way to give me a better understanding and give me another tool to add to my toolbox, really. So that's why I chose it. All right, so the first article talks about why bother with writing at all. It starts to talk about how writing shows the students' thought processes. It reveals the inaccuracies that they might have that wouldn't normally come up because they're coming up with the right numbers, but having them actually explain what their process is, it might show something that they're doing wrong that can be proved to be a problem later on. It shows the areas that they need growth, something that they're just a little fuzzy on or they just can't quite explain. It shows the roadblocks that they reach. It shows things that they just can't quite understand, and then it also shows what they actually do understand and what they have a great understanding of. And it's a good assessment, really, I think, for yourself. So if you give like what this article talks about was something I didn't think of as doing like a quick write, it helps you understand and do assessment of yourself and how you're teaching it. It also says that using writing, it helps with active problem solving and improved content learning because they're having to explain each step and really understand what they're doing when they're doing it. It can also tap into their own thinking by writing their thinking on paper. It makes them organize their thoughts because sometimes things just come naturally to people, but actually having to think about the separate steps and really learning it is a little bit different. It also helps with metacognition, which is thinking about your own thinking, which is integral to problem solving, and it can lead to self-directed learning, and using this writing in math in this way is a great way of promoting that. Writing prompts help get the metacognition piece going in math. Alright, so the article used an example throughout. The teacher is named Maggie, and so what she does is she shows a student a problem that they have never seen before. It's about logarithm. It's actually a problem that she has from the class that is like from an above grade than them, that it's a little bit farther ahead, so they have already covered logarithms. And she asked them to solve it, and if anybody has any volunteers, if they understand how to do it. And once she had understood that nobody had an answer or whatever, she asked them to do a quick write and explain what they think about it, what they thought about this problem when they first got introduced to it, and like what they think that they could do to solve it. And then she gives them, since this is one of the first writing prompts that she did, she goes over a couple options. So she's like for them to write. So she goes, I want option 1, you can write the sentence, this is what I realize why I hate math, because it's just a hard problem. She's like, option 2, you can write the sentence, I'm a little afraid, but I understand some of the language. And then she goes, option 3, you can write, I'm not sure, but when we learn about it, I'm sure I can do it, which goes into a little bit more in depth. And she tells them she asks them which option do they think is the best option for an answer. And then explain why. Well, then the article actually quotes, she wants her students to have an idea of how to approach writing, and she wants to help settle any fears they might have about letting her into their thinking. So she wants them to actually write about what they feel about it and like what they think, and no matter what they write, as long as they're writing something that has to do with the questions that she's asking them. All right, so then at the beginning of the class, she actually hands out these prompts. They reflect on their participation in class today and complete the following statements. So something that they do, and to help them understand like what they write. So the different prompts are: I learned that blank. I was surprised that ... I noticed that I ... and it goes down through there. After I solved the problem about blank, I felt blank. She uses these as a scaffold at the beginning to get them used to the writing in math class, and she'll later take away the prompts and just have them write on their own, but this is just a way to get them thinking and understand like how to write. She has a rubric that she follows in class, and she models a rubric at the beginning of the year along with the writing prompts that she hands them to clear up any confusion. In the example before, using options 1, 2, and 3, like I had talked about, Maggie will ask her students which response is a 1-point response and discuss why, because the rubric gives a 1-point, a 2-point, and a 3-point. And then she describes how number 3 is a better 3-point response and why, and she explains like what she would expect of them. This way the kids get a clear understanding of what is expected of them, and that they should all aim for a 3-point response. She then quickly collects responses, and it says how you can actually use those responses to help you out in the classroom. It gives you a quick idea of the student's understanding or what they need help on or what is being taught. It's a real quick assessment of the classroom's understanding. Allowing students to write the responses in pairs helps them get through their thoughts better, organized in a way to get them to cooperate and teach each other. So it's a good way to get them to work together by having them write these quick writes together, because they can each explain their thinking or help clear up some ideas at the end of the class. I actually pulled another quote from the article. It says that the pairing prompts help students focus their learning, organize their thinking, and communicate their understanding about a mathematical concept. She uses rubrics as instructional tools to clearly communicate the goals for learning and provide feedback based on specific criteria. So basically, she's using the writing rubrics to inform their learning, and it's a pretty cool little way to assess, and it's actually a pretty neat way to include writing in your math class. All right, so the next section on the article was about improving math literacy. So I pulled a quote that says, for today's students, writing during a math lesson is a way to deepen learning and to get a new perspective. And for students whose strengths are language-based, writing can be the key to understanding mathematics. So not only is it a cool way to understand their what they understand and a way to assess yourself, but it's also another outlet to get kids that might be better writers than they are, like, in the math section. It gives them a way to get points, and it helps them understand because it's connecting to something that they do get from something that they don't. So it had a little review of the steps that the teacher took to improve math literacy, which I kind of like, so I probably will keep another note of this for my classroom planning. So the first step, she identified the current mathematics content and the learning goal. That's to activate the metacognitive process. She then developed or selected a question or prompt that will help students access prior content knowledge and focus their learning. She will introduce the writing prompt to students through a variety of methods. She will model for students examples of responses of varying quality and discuss each. She will allow a few minutes for students to respond individually to the prompt. She'll collect and quickly scan responses to get insight about the student's readiness to learn. She will adjust her lesson accordingly. If many of the students are not ready to try something new, they might need to review an earlier content, or you might want students to work in pairs or triads to collaboratively solve a new problem. She asked students to express themselves in writing. Students must organize their thinking and learning about the content. During the process, there's also opportunities to share their ideas, experiences, a creative side of mathematics, and to learn to value the act of writing. Writing can be as much at home in a middle school mathematics classroom or as in an English class, and it's actually a really great way to assess and to get the kids really thinking, and do they really understand what they're doing. And then I also had an example of the 3-point rubric. So for 3 points, she wanted the response addresses the entire prompt and communicates the appropriate mathematical understanding. The strategy used by students in effective answering the prompt, including graphs, models, patterns, or pictures. 2 points is the response addresses most of the prompt and demonstrates adequate knowledge and understanding. There is evidence that with slight feedback, the student could reach the desired response. There may be a few overlooked areas and slight errors in understanding. And then the 1 point on the rubric was the response demonstrates slight knowledge of the content necessary to complete the prompt. While there was effort made to complete the task, little was successful. Direct instruction would be necessary for the student to be able to accomplish the task. So this is how she gives points onto the different writing things. So it's, even if you don't take a grade, the point system might even be a good way to use it so they understand like what they really need to write down, and they have a clear understanding of why she's doing this. All right, so then my takeaway from this article and the research I did I gained many ideas on how to incorporate writing in my math class. Instead of just using math journals, I could do like little quick writes, or I could have them explain the steps they took and have them handed in as like a short little assessment for me as well as them. I loved how it gave me an example how to go about doing the process, and it gave me a sample rubric on how I might score it, or just give the kids a way to look about what to really write, what's required of them. I connected this information that I pulled from this article to my assessment class that I took last spring, because it talks about the importance of having a clear goal and reviewing the rubric of the class so they really understand what is expected of them. It really delves into how you need to explain to the kids why they're doing this, why it's important, and give them an idea of what you want them to do, which is very important when you're assessing your students. I also have a better understanding of how writing actually affects the learning and how it promotes the metacognitive process, and that it's a very powerful tool to actually have in my classroom. And that is it.